Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cardolicchio. I want to welcome you to another segment of Destination Health Podcast, where we find function in a dysfunctional world. I am here today with my friend. You should have heard us before we got on. Oh my! We were having a good old conversation, and we said, "Oh, we better do the podcast." But I want to welcome to the show Karen Porter. Karen, how are you today? What's going on? You are in where? In Ontario somewhere?
Yes, very close to Toronto. I am great, Daniel, and thanks for having me. Hope you're doing well today. I'm pretty sure you are, based on our previous conversation.
Yes, we had a very lively conversation, and we said, let's get the podcast in so that we can continue on with the liveliness, and let's motivate, let's educate, let's inspire. So this is the time, Karen, where I take a look at your bio. You can go get a cup of coffee, get a tea or whatever. But, Karen, 30 years battled with severe IBS. Now, hold on, everybody. When I have a guest on, we really get into it. Okay. Karen, anxiety, debilitating bouts of suicidal depression. You would never know. Left her hospitalized, grasping for her life, forced to reevaluate everything and take her health into her own hands. Started looking into alternative methods to help her heal when the traditional approach failed. Learned the tools to transform her life to feel and be healthy, happy, focused, and radiant. Her health and consequently her life shifted. She felt compelled to help as many women as she possibly can to live their absolute best health. She's passionate about helping women over 45 regain their energy, feel great in their bodies, again, so that they can live their best life. As a woman's health and wellness coach, she takes the confusion, which there's a ton of confusion and overwhelm, out of nutrition, out of movement, stress management, mindset, while empowering females to feel happy and fulfilled. Offers a free, fabulous 5-day challenge. We're going to discuss that. Your best life reset. She hosts Your Best Life Retreat. She's been on TV. Now she's on our podcast. And let's get right into it. Anxiety, debilitating bouts of suicidal depression. Now, Karen, Jesus, you're radiant. You have a lot of life. You're smiling. You're upbeat. Tell us about anxiety and debilitating bouts of suicidal depression, please.
Yes, and I know it's hard to believe. And one of the biggest things, and I'm sure you can relate to this, Daniel, is people often look at somebody else comparing themselves to their chapter 1 with that other person's chapter 10, right? Mm-hmm. So I am in chapter 10, having had gone through all of those other chapters, the highs and the lows, right. And there were a lot of lows, right? And even if you looked at my life back then, even myself, I knew I had everything. It looked like I had everything, right? But it didn't matter. That only brought me more guilt and shame when I would go down low. So I had the wonderful husband, I still have him. Thank God he's still with me today. Mm-hmm. But I had the wonderful husband, the beautiful children, the cars, the house, the everything, and outside looking in, you would think that everything was amazing. But when things were good, I was good. Unfortunately, something was going on with my gut. Mm-hmm. You talked about IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And so I had that going on at the same time as my mental health going on, right? And we know, you and I know, Daniel, about the gut-brain connection, right? And perhaps your listeners do too. But that wasn't something that I knew mm-hmm. back then, or my doctor knew back then, right? And so first for me, I would start worrying about things that I didn't normally worry about. And that worry would turn into more anxiety, would start to turn into insomnia. And you know what it's like when you don't sleep well for a night or 2 or 3, but when it goes on for weeks and months
on end, right?
You're not, I was no longer functioning and not understanding why I wasn't functioning, right? So I would even go to my doctor because I, you know, after the second and third and fourth time this happened, it was like I recognized it right away. I even tried to get the help. You know, and you know, traditional medicine throws another, you know, another pill at it, right? Let me give you something for your IBS. Now let's try that anti-anxiety pill. Oh, let's do the antidepressant, right? And let's try the different cocktails of antidepressants. So that was kind of how I functioned, but it didn't prevent me from spiraling down. So that's, you know, that's where it was. I was hospitalized 4 times once in my 20s, my 30s, and twice in my 40s, spending time in the psychiatric ward. So, and the whole time, this was kept quiet between my husband and I, right? That's how shameful it is, which you can totally appreciate.
Mental health is always has the stigma to it. It has the stigma to it. Not that it's shameful, but there's that stigmata.
Oh, for sure.
Excuse me.
For sure.
That it has, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I would, you know, I would be in the psychiatric ward and looking around and thinking, I know I don't belong here. I'm not like these other people, because you can just imagine the spectrum in there, right? But I knew that something was very, very wrong with me. And my husband, of course, was absolutely terrified for my safety, right? Because I knew how to take the pills, right? And I would battle with it in my mind. Like, you know, I've got kids. I can hear my daughter singing down the hallway. Like all that kind of shit was going on. Sorry, am I allowed to swear?
Listen, you know what, we in our podcast, I have had guests on that have had near-death experiences, and they do have a tendency to swear. I don't, you know, we just don't take it out, because listen, if you've had breast cancer or if you've had suicidal depression, and if you use a word, I think that you're entitled to use any words that you want to use. So it's all good.
Okay.
When you did say that, my dog got up. My dog's at my feet right now.
Yes. And I can laugh about it now, but you can imagine that there was no laughing going on then, right? It was, yeah, it was really, really not good. But each time with, you know, a week to a week and a half spent in the hospital, and then months of outpatient care after.
Wow.
Also trying to seek the help of a psychologist, and then later, you know, a number of different alternative routes. I was able to crawl back, even, you know, pushing myself to do things when I didn't want to, right? You know, that motivation does not precipitate action. You have to push yourself into action even before you feel like doing it, right? So it was all those things, volunteering, putting myself out with my friends, even when I had no words to contribute, right? And it was crawling, you know, as I said, crawling back each time. And I didn't speak about this until 2 years ago, when a coach pulled it out of me. And she's like, you have a big story. And I thought, I can't tell this. How could I possibly tell this story, right? And then I got the okay from my husband, got the okay from my daughter. Like, are you okay if I share this? And then once I did, it was like, you know, it makes people realize, as with, you know, other guests of yours, right? It makes people realize that they're not alone, right? If she can go through that and come out on the other side, right? That's what people want to hear, that it is possible.
Okay. Yeah. And I want to thank you for your vulnerability, and I want to thank you for your share. And I want you to realize that sharing your story is something that helps out people. And I've always said this on the podcast. That's why if somebody uses a little profanity, I don't care, because, we're here to motivate, we're here to educate, and we're here to inspire. And if somebody is listening to this at any given time right now, and they realize that they have some anxiety and depression, and that is exponential right now from what I'm seeing in my private practice, and I'm referring out to different types of people because they need help. It's okay. A friend of mine says, it's okay. It's going to be okay, because once you start sharing, it's better. Once you start sharing, it's better. And once you start sharing and you realize that there are other people that are out there that may be struggling the same way you have, a little bit different, the same, you can help people out. You can serve humankind. And that's what we're here to do. And that's what this podcast is all about. So thank you for that share. Now, I want to delve just a little bit deeper. Where did this anxiety and depression come from? Did they figure it out? Was it something that, I don't know, was in the family? Was it something that you just had? Was it you just kind of woke up one day and you said, I feel a little blue today? Because we all feel blue from time to time, Karen. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But that blueness went a little bit more, or a lot more with you.
A lot more. Yeah.
Where did this come from, Karen, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah. And I would say it's really, a number of different things, right? But I remember going into my doctor's office after my last episode. And I was there doing something with my daughter. And then I thought, I just want to talk to him. And I said to him, I just want you to know that I am feeling so much better. And he said, oh, I knew that as soon as you came in here, Karen. He said, it's all over your face. It's in your eyes and your smile and the way that you're talking, right? So he could, he knew that I was doing better. But what he said to me that day just kind of changed. It had me floating, literally floating out of his office, because he said to me, and this was a number of years ago, but not that long, that, like within the last 10 years. And he said, Karen, I want you to know I've been doing research, and I really believe that the severity of your depression and how quickly it came on has to do with inflammation in your body. And I just went, wow. Like, I didn't hear anything after that. I didn't know if he was talking about the inflammation in my gut with my IBS or inflammation in my brain. And I later went on to find in my own studies that, about the gut-brain connection. But at the time, what it did for me was it meant this wasn't all in my head. This wasn't all my own self-destruction, right? Because that's how you feel when you're in it. Like, I've caused this myself, right? But he made me realize that there was inflammation in my body. And that's what I'm so passionate about, helping other people change, is to reduce the inflammation in their bodies. But having said that, like, where does that come from, right? And where does that inflammation come from? And I can go back to my high school days. I can go back to childhood, and I can see it. I used to say that when I used to be in the financial industry. So I'm of that, that brain set, right? Very, like, not always, but, organized and, just professional. Perfectionism was definitely in my childhood. And so when I was good, when I was at my high points, I would say I was the best version of my mother and my father. But when I was at my low points, I would be the worst version of the two of them. So what I mean by that is my father had his own business, and I would describe him as back then as a workaholic.
Mhm.
But he had such a strong work ethic that he wanted so much to provide for his family, and he was always go go go. My mom, on the other hand, was a stay-at-home mom, but she was a perfectionism in her own way, in that she always had to be done to the nines. She didn't go out to the corner store unless she had her full makeup, hair done, beautiful outfit on. And my father, kind of in his words, contributed to that going on. So that's what I heard and saw as a child, right? Like, you're not good enough until you're all done up, right? And
Until
you're
you reach
not.
that certain point.
Yeah, that's right. And my father's over here with his strong work ethic, workaholism, right? And so, like I said, I got both of those and thought I had to be the best, the best wife, the best mom, the beautiful woman, have the best career, all of those things. And that's what makes a person blow up, right? And that's literally what I did. When I look back at it, anxiety, adrenals were shot, gut was affected, and then mental health is affected, right? So
Right.
It's so clear to me now, but unfortunately it wasn't clear then. And there were several times that I could have been gone, like not here today. Yeah.
You know what? Again, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for the share. This is something that I think people experience. Perfectionism, and this perfectionism can be debilitating. And not every day is perfection. And I used to be like this a lot, where, being entrepreneurial, you got to be on the top of your game, and you have to be perfect every single day until you wake up one day and you realize it's okay not to be perfect, and it's okay to learn the lesson. And it's okay to move forward, because it's a process. No matter what you do in your life, whether you're this or that or whatever the case may be. And I understand what you're saying, because I was told, again, coming from this immigrant type of a family, that you had to be the best of the best, regardless. And I remember my father would say to me, and my grandfather would say to me, listen, if you're a shoemaker or you're a lawyer, you're going to be the best shoemaker that's ever lived, or the best lawyer that's ever lived. It didn't make any difference what you did, because that's what they wanted, and that's why they migrated, and so forth and so on. But
your dad went to the same school as my dad.
Yeah, 100%.
Totally the same. Yeah.
But what happens is that the lessons that you needed to learn to get to the point to be whatever it is you wanted to be in life, it could be in your career, it could be in your family life, whatever that is, you needed to learn those lessons. Then you can go towards that. Not that you're looking for perfection, but you're learning about life, and you're learning how to take it on the chin, if you will. That's what we used to say back in Newark. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you needed to do something to learn. So thank you for the share. So the silver lining, Karen, the silver lining. What was that defining moment in your life that you said, it's not going to get the best of me?
Yeah, that's a tricky one. But what I look at that, that time. So I'll just go back to the last worst, and each one got worse. The last depressive episode happened 2 days before my daughter's high school graduation. I'm 55 now, and that was at, so how old was I then? 47, 48. And so I was hospitalized then. And when I woke up in the psychiatric ward, and then, time went on, my husband came to visit me, and either he brought it up or I brought it up. And it's like, I think in my mind, I thought, oh God, I'm still here and it's her graduation. And so we begged the doctor to let me out.
Mhm.
And so on the day of her graduation, he gave me, and this was 2 days, 2 days earlier was when the, what hit the fan. And he let me out that day. Yeah, he let me out that day. I had contacted my sister-in-law in the hospital before they found out I still had a cell phone in the psychiatric ward. Like, I remember that, because they take your phones away, right? But for some reason, something made me call her. And I said, I am in the hospital. I need help. She left work and got on the train and came out to the hospital. And this was the first time this had ever been out of anywhere between my husband and I, right? I almost felt a little bit of relief for my husband, because now he was no longer just the sole bearer of me, right? Of what he was trying to hold in for me. So she came that day. And then the 2 days later, when it was my daughter's graduation, when the doctor let me out on a pass, I went to her house. She helped me with, my husband had dropped off some clothes. She helped me do some makeup and fix my hair and get decently dressed. Both of my daughter's grandparents were there. So my mom and dad and my husband's mom and dad. My mom and dad had a little bit of an idea of what was going on, but not to the extent. And my husband's parents didn't know at all. We just told them that I'd been hospitalized with my IBS, right? Which was not that far-fetched, but that was not the case at all, right? And I just remember being at that graduation thinking, this has to stop, right? Like, I cannot allow this to happen ever again. And not that I allowed it to happen before, but I think each time I crawled back, I would kind of never look back at it. Do you know what I mean? It's like, that
I understand what you're saying. Sure.
happened. Yeah. And we're going to stay here and move forward. But I think the last time it happened, I said, I have to do everything in my power. I don't care what it takes. I've got to figure this out, because I can't go down that road again. So I would say that would be my defining moment, is sitting at her graduation, watching what was going on, and knowing that it had to change. It had to change.
That's a very powerful story. It just brings up so many memories. It brings up so many thoughts. It brings up so many comments that you want to make. Now, what did you do specifically, now that you've recognized you had this aha moment? What did you do specifically to pull yourself up?
Right. So the first thing that I did actually occurred before that. But the first thing that I did was I went to a grocery store where someone was holding a healthy cooking class. And I listened to what that woman had to say. And I went up to her after and I said, I need more of what you got. She was a holistic nutritionist. And I said, not even thinking about my brain, right? I didn't even know that then. I was just like, I have IBS and I need help. I need you to help me make this better. So she helped me totally change my diet. And I was feeling so much better. Unfortunately, I hadn't worked on the brain part. The food definitely helped with my mental health, but obviously there was still an underlying root cause. Something was still going on in my brain, right? So I remember when I started to go down that spiral again, and I thought, ugh, I had changed my food. I thought I was doing the things that I needed to do, and I exercised, right? So I already had the food and the exercise component, but I still went down. And so after that defining moment, I still continued, with my food and my exercise, but knowing that there was still more that I had to do. So that was again, me pushing myself to volunteer more, right? Because when you get outside of your own brain and start helping other people.
Once you start serving, it just changes
totally.
everything. Yeah.
Exactly. It had a win-win effect. They looked forward to me coming in. Sorry, I volunteered at an old age home, or a retirement home. And they looked forward to me coming in there as much as I look forward to, oh, I could actually get emotional there. I didn't think I was going to get emotional today. But I actually look forward to going in to see them. Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you for your share. Do you need to go get a glass of water or something?
No, I can get past it. I'm good.
Boy, you know what? There have been individuals that have cried. I'm sorry if I'm making you cry.
No,
but
you're not at all. You're not at all.
I think
I was surprised I had not cried yet.
Yeah, this is too important of a lesson in the story.
That's right. That's right. And you know why it's emotional for me is because since the pandemic, I have not been in to see them. And so I'm missing that connection right now, right? So anyway, so doing things like that, though, as you said, being of service to others, that is another thing that helped me. But I would say that the final piece for me, outside of the food and the exercise and the being of service to others, the final piece for me was the mindset and the mindfulness part. So I was going to a psychologist who said, I want you to try this. So phone this woman and take this course. And honestly, so it was a course on mindfulness. And I sat there for 6 weeks going, this is not helping me. This is not working. This is not helping me. This is not. Yeah. And so guess what happens when you say that to yourself, right? Guess what?
At some point in time. Yeah.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? However, because I kept doing it, it was finally starting to sink in and change neural pathways in my brain, right? So I really started to learn how to change my thought processes by being aware of them, by being aware of my beliefs, right? Like my belief that went back from childhood, like you're not good enough until, right? You're not good enough until you're beautiful, until you strive for this, until you attain this, right? Like that's BS, but that's what we carry forward, right? So it was really incorporating this mindfulness, this slowing down, this awareness, this feeding my brain better information, raising my vibration, all of those things that really were and breath work, right? Like these were all of the building blocks to making me better. And then making me research and go back and study nutrition and mindfulness and stress management, right? Those are my things.
That's your wheelhouse. This is an amazing story. Somebody who seemingly has everything that you think you would want out of life. Yeah. But there's this internal struggle that is going on. So
look at Robin Williams.
Right. 100%.
Looks like he has everything. Yeah.
Listen, for everybody listening today, as you can see, Karen and I are friends, and she went through struggles. I went through struggles. And if there's struggles here, if you're going through struggles, this has got to motivate you to get help. It's got to educate you as to what you may have, and you need to start investigating it. And it's got to inspire you to something higher. And it's got to inspire you to do more and better in the world. It's inspiring you to serve humankind. I'm big on that. And, all of you have heard me say this many, many, many times. And this is something that needs to happen. And it's something that we all need to look at. So this is just an incredible story. What was it like for your children? What did they go through?
And we almost didn't even talk about it, right? It was like, and yeah, when I was in my 20s, at least I only had to think about my husband and I, right? But then in my 30s and 40s, it was like, oh, now I got these kids, which I was very happy being a mom. And then until I went back to work and everything was good for a while, and then it wasn't good, right? So they were exposed to it when they were very young, like 5 and 6 and 7, and then they were exposed to it again in early teens and later teens. And yeah, it was a tough go, right? But they knew when things got better, because I've always been the talkative one, right? But when things weren't good, it was like, I know that they could see me shutting down, right? And not intentionally, that's just what happened to me.
Right.
But then they would see me coming back, right? And I would feel awful about the whole thing. But I would tell myself when I came back, okay, this is the mom that I am, right? This is what you're seeing me good now, right?
Right.
So yeah, and I mean, we talked about it after, like after the last time, and it was like, now I'm ready to share this, right? So yeah, it was friggin' hard. The only thing I can say, when I talked to my daughter about it after, and I would say, do you remember this? Do you remember when this happened? And she'd say, well, sort of, but not really. So it's like, kids are, especially teenagers, they're busy in their own lives. I swear that was my only saving grace when I look back on it, that they are very self-centered as teenagers. I mean, some are more sensitive than others, but they were, they were absorbed in their own thing. So thank goodness that maybe they missed some of the worst of it, but I know that they did get the worst of it. But they're very resilient. And as awful as I felt about it was like, they saw the other side. They saw the good side, and they saw their mom rally back, right? And so, it showed them that is possible. But you can just imagine, Daniel, every step of the way, I watched them, right? Because I was very in tune to what happened to me. So I wanted at all costs to prevent them from experiencing anything like that.
The same thing, right? Because we will do anything for our children, and to make sure that they're okay, and to make sure that you can impart these lessons. What was it like for your husband? The other thing I was going to say is that we know that there is a bit of a hereditary component, right? So you asked about that before, like, where did it come from? And, I think my mom felt super awful when she knew the extent of what I was going through, which she didn't really know until the end. Because I think she had experienced depression herself. I was going to say, did she share anything with you?
Only that, she had times where, she remembered thinking, it'd be better if I wasn't here, right? Which is awful to think, but she never took action on it. And I think hers was more precipitated by an event going on, whereas mine was never an event. Like, there was never something really bad that happened that precipitated it. And so, like, what the heck? There was nothing. Do you know what I mean? Like, if there was a big death or there was a big trauma or something, I really never had that. And that was the other reason that I would be second guessing it. Like, why am I experiencing this? Right. So for my husband, I mean, that's usually the other point where I tear up, but I'm not going to. But
it's okay. We have just a little bit more time. We're going to continue on this conversation next week. We're going to make sure that you have tissues the next time, so that it's all good.
Okay. But no, he had to experience this. And if he was not a solid rock that he still is today, I can't imagine him still being with me, because what he had to endure. I mean, I can only imagine that in his mind, he said, that's not the Karen that I married and the Karen that I see. I have seen her good. I know she can get back to good, right? And he would keep telling me that. But when I was low, I couldn't see it, right? So, yeah.
Amazing story. Resilience, tragedy to triumph, coming out of the abyss and coming up to the top of the game, learning the lessons that you needed to learn, which is incredible. We're gonna have a part 2, Karen. We've been going for a while here, and when we get off here in the next few moments, we're gonna schedule part 2, and this is going to be released within 24 hours. So people are going to be listening to this, and then we'll have one again next week, because I think this is just too important to rush, because you got to get everything done in an hour these days because people's attention span. But for me, if I'm listening to a podcast as interesting as this, I replay it as soon as I'm done. So it's one of those situations. So, it's all good. Now, before we get off, is there anything you want to say to our audience? Because right now I think you're the host. So is there anything that you want to say to our audience before we sign off for today?
Wow. That's a big open-ended one, right?
Can you give me 3 points that you want to convey, or 3 lessons that you want to convey? What is it that three things?
Wow. I should have formulated these ones, Daniel. It's
I told you, once we get on, even though we're friends, once we get on, you never know where I'm going with this.
That's right. That's right. Just like be forgiving of yourself, right? Self-compassion is huge. And I've read books on it, articles on it. And it's just like, give yourself the grace that you need, accept yourself where you are, love and respect yourself where you are. But that doesn't mean that we can't take action to changing it, right? For me, it's like, whether it's a weight loss issue, whether it's mental health, autoimmune, any type of physical health, really, right? You've got to love and accept yourself and your body and your brain where you are right now. That's what's going to precipitate you taking the action steps toward where you need to go, right?
Right.
And then get a mentor, get a coach, get the help that you need with the accountability that you need to get you where you need to go, because it absolutely is possible. I am living proof.
Right.
I am the experiment, right? That it is possible.
And we're going to get into that, because you call yourself the experiment. We're going to do that next week. That's a perfect ending to today's conversation. Be forgiving of yourself. We're going to pick this up next week. Karen, thank you for being vulnerable. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for crying, and thank you for laughing, all within one podcast. And
that's right.
I have said many times on my podcast, it's a good podcast when somebody's vulnerable, and when somebody shares, and when somebody cries, and when somebody laughs. So we've done that significantly today. So I want to thank you for being on. We'll put together a date for part 2 as soon as we're off the air here, and we'll get that up and going next week, hopefully next week at the latest. And want to thank all of our listeners today. If you have any questions, please send me a DM, and I'll make sure Karen gets it. We can discuss it on the next podcast that we do next week. And I'm going to try to have Karen do a live podcast next week. So if there's anybody that has any questions, we can discuss it in live. But if you do have any questions, please send me a message, and I'll make sure Karen gets it. So I want to thank everybody for listening. Karen, thank you from the bottom of my heart, my friend. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me on. It was
great. And we're going to pick it up next week. We're going to do a live. So everybody have a great day, and look for the next live. Be the best version of yourself, and we'll talk soon. Take care now.